Welcome back to Movie Debut. Today, I will show you ancient adventure movie of 2018 named Alpha. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. 20,000 years ago in ancient Europe, a small society of hunters led by their leader, Tao gets ready to strike a herd of steppe bison. They create a wall of pikes that causes the bison to smash off a cliff, but 3 of them stop back and one specific bull goes after Tao's son Keta. After brutally hitting him with its horns, it hang up him to the edge of the cliff, where Keta falls to the abyss after Tao hits the beast with his spear. This all begins 1 week earlier, when the teenagers of the tribe are certified on their pike-making skills. The only ones to pass are Keta and his friend Kappa, so they will be taken to the last hunting trip before cold comes. As part of the ritual that leveled them as grown-up now, they also get beat up by the other men to know that trouble will journey with them, and they are adored by the local priest by the campfire. Later, while acting to be asleep, Keta listens and Tao and his mother Ro conversation. Ro does not think he is ready for trip because he convey with his heart, not his bayonet, but Tao thinks Keta must do his part and clarify himself to the society. Following morning, the hunting group leaves after saying goodbye to their special ones and getting the priest's blessing. Ro even gives Keta and more fur as his safety. The group starts their journey across the land by following the religious lane left by their ancestors, who have made a sequence of rock sculptures that leave a direction for them to follow. The hand paintings on them point at the direction they must take to the hunting field. During the journey, they come across another hunting party led by Zai, an old friend of Tao's who has lately lost his son. Both parties start traveling together then. Whenever he has the chance, Keta tries to prove himself to his father, but he is not able to make a fire and cannot bring himself to kill the boar the other men sees, so he feels defeated. One night, while they are eating by the fire, they hear a sound behind them, so they rapidly jump on to an attacking position. When nothing comes, they quickly relax, which proves to be a mistake. A cave lion suddenly jumps out and snatches Kappa, who it takes away to feed on. The following morning, the men build a tombstone to give Kappa a memorial service that symbolizes the passing of one's spirit to the afterlife. The trip continues with only stops to hunt and rest. One evening, when they find a large and safe cave for rest, Tao takes the chance to make Keta get a tattoo of the prospect just like him. That way he will always find a way home. It takes a good amount of days, but one day, they find a trail of dumplings that takes them to a herd of steppe bison, which brings the story back to the beginning. As he falls, Keta tries to hold onto a rough rock edge, but he slips and lands and reaches the ledge, where he breaks a leg and falls unconscious. Desperate to save his son, Tao tries to climb down, but other hunters stop him, pointing out it is too late. While the men bring the sleds to take the bison on, Tao stays by the edge of the cliff, crying in refusal. Now that their hunters have been divided equally, Zai's group leaves on their own to return to home, so Tao's group has one last night of camping before convincing their leader it is time to move on. The next morning, Tao builds another headstone while tears of grief continue to fall. Many hours after the party is gone, a vulture lands on Keta and tries to feed on him. This makes him wake up, and after pushing the bird off him by dragging out its neck, he realizes the situation he is in. Dragging his broken leg behind him, Keta tries to climb down, but there is not enough rough shade for him to hold on, and ends up hanging in there for a long, unbearable moment. Soon after, a storm arrives and begins flooding the ground below him, so Keta comes to terms with what he has to do and lets go of his grip, landing in the water. When he wakes up the next morning, it has stopped raining and the flooding is gone. After drinking water from a beagle and splinting his injured foot, Keta slowly makes his way back to the top of the cliff, where he finds the headstone his father left for him. But Keta kicks it out in frustration when he realizes he has been left alone and must find his own way home. Keta starts traveling alone. He eats bugs, fills his canteen with any poodle he can find, and climbs trees to rest safely at night away from predators. When a group of wolves finds him in the middle of the day, Keta runs to a tree again, stabbing one of the wolves when it grabs his leg before he lastly climbs to safety. He stays on top of the tree until the wolves get annoyed of waiting, and they all leave excepting the one Keta injured. He develops a spear to finish it off, but he cannot lead himself to do it, so he makes a decision to ignore it instead. Except Keta cannot do that either. The wolf's painful cavilling is too much to hear. Keta decides to help, and after tying up its snout not to get bitten, he picks up the wolf and takes it to the lake in order to clean its injuries. Sadly, they cannot rest there for long because there are wolves nearby, so Keta carries the wolf again until they find safe shelter in a cave where they can rest safely. On following morning, Keta finds a howitzer near a bunch of bones and uses it to create a plant bomb that he applies on his foot while the wolf manages to free his snout. Seeing as the animal is reaction, Keta decides to share his water with it, which the wolf lately accepts after lots of growling. Keta goes as far as cleaning the injuries with the fur his mother gave him and sharing the worms he finds with the wolf as well. But worms are not sufficient to keep themselves fed, so Keta finally makes himself as brave as to make his first hunt. He kills a rabbit with a rock, and even he starts a fire at last to cook it. The wolf tries to take the rabbit from him, but Keta swiftly pushes him away, remembering the lessons of his father has taught him about leadership. He built dominance by always eating first and feeding the wolf after he finished. No matter how much he shares with it, though, the wolf still will not grant him to touch it. Winter is quickly coming and Keta must have to find the way of home before snow begins to fall. He never thinks he can make it without his father, but he has to try. After collecting together enough supplies and struggling with the wolf to get his fur back, Keta leaves the cave and starts walking his way back, getting bothered. Because the wolf will not stop coming, no matter how many times he tells it to go away. Eventually, Keta gives up and accepts the wolf as his new journey companion, even training it to come over after getting his signal. Their first attempts at hunting together are a complete failure, but after a few tries, they manage to find a way to concur their attacks and get their prey without too much effort. At night, Keta double-checks they are going in the right direction or not by using the constellation tattoo on his hand, and the wolf starts sleeping next to him, even allowing him to touch it now that he has gained his trust. After an afternoon spent in the lake bathing and fishing, Keta decides to name the wolf Alpha. Their journey is taking so long that winter finally catches up with them and snow starts to fall. One night, while they are eating by the bonfire, they are approached by a group of wolves that turns out to be Alpha's family. In knowing what it's like to miss your loved ones, Keta tells Alpha to go with them, so now he is left to continue journey alone. As time passes, snowstorms become more familiar, so Keta is having more difficulty making much progress every day, especially when he has an overwhelming dream of Tao arriving home and getting Ro the bad news. After a few days of traveling through yet another storm, he comes across Alpha and its group. When he runs towards them, the ice breaks under his feet and he falls into the freezing water. As his mother's fur and most of his supplies float away, Keta hits the ice with his knife and manages to break to let Alpha drag him out. Both start traveling together again, and later that night, Keta sleeps hugging Alpha to recover some warmth in his freezing body. After a few miles, they find a trail of tracks that follows to a hut, but sadly, the owner has frozen to death. There is no food to be found, but Keta finds a bow and arrow to hunt, ignoring Alpha's worry when he suddenly starts to cough up blood. Sometime later, the duo finds himself between a hard place. There are hyenas approaching to them, but also a very dangerous storm ahead of them, so they run until they find a cave to hide in. Unfortunately, the place is not vacant. There is a lion in cave that does not waffle to attack them. Alpha fights it angrily while Keta puts the arrow on his bow, absorbing to hit the right target. He manages to kill the lion and save Alpha, who still comes out heavy injuries from the fight. When they go back to traveling very slowly in the middle of the snowstorm, and they find the sculpture that marks the religious path, so Keta knows they must be close. His hope gets more stronger when the northern lights appear above them one night, a sign that his ancestors guiding them. However, Alpha is too weak to keep going, and one day he finally falls down. Not wanting to leave his friend behind, so Keta starts to carry it in his arms, ignoring the fact that he is also weak and continues to cough up blood. The conditions are so harsh that Keta eventually collapses as well. But then he finds reassurance in a memory that comes in his dream. It is the conversation of his parents having the last night before they left. To help Ro not to worry, Tao had told her Keta is stronger than even more he knows. With a new gained strength from his father's belief in him, Keta wakes up and takes Alpha again, carrying it through the snowstorm, until they finally make it back to his tri-group. Nobody can believe that what they are seeing, and Tao cries as he tells his son how proud he is before taking him and the wolf into a tent for treatment of injuries. After Keta is patched up and fed, the shaman examines Alpha and finds what its problem is. Alpha is actually a female wolf, and she is pregnant. All the puppies are born safely and healthy, and the tri-group welcomes them as a part of their family. Years later, once the puppies grown up and become proper adult wolves, they are assigned as partners of hunters, and they are taken to the next great hunt before winter.